This feels right. I'd like to thank Sissy and Dion for the honor of being here, and for everybody in the church treating my wife and I so gracefully. I'm going to say some stories, maybe some of them you know, maybe some of you don't. I wrote them down because I didn't want to miss anything. The song "I Will Always Love You" almost wasn't. It wasn't supposed to be in the movie. The first choice was going to be "What Becomes of a Broken Heart." But it had been out the year before in another movie, and we felt that it wouldn't have the impact, and so we couldn't use it. So what becomes of our broken hearts? Whitney returns home today to the place where it all began. And I urge us all, inside and outside, across the nation and around the world, to dry our tears, suspend our sorrow, and perhaps our anger, just long enough to remember the sweet miracle of Whitney. Never forgetting that Sissy and Bobby Christina sit among us. Your mother and I have a lot in common. I know many at this moment are thinking, really? She's a girl, you're a boy. You're white, she's black. We heard you like to sing, but our sister could really sing. So what am I talking about? Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston, they don't have anything in common at all. Well, you'd be wrong about that. We both grew up in the Baptist church. It wasn't as big as this. My grandmother played the piano, and she led the choir. And her two daughters, my mom and my aunt, both sang in it. The rest of my family, uncles, aunts, and cousins sat every Sunday out front and watched. My earliest memories are tied to that old church in Paramount. I remember seeing a gold shovel go into the ground, people praying about it and thinking, wow, something big was going to go here. And I watched my father and the rest of the men build it from the ground up. I was probably 4 years old and seemed to be always in the way. I wanted to help. I wanted to be in on the action. One of the men snapped down a red line where the choir would be standing one day and said, "Have at it. As many nails as you want. All in this line." I always took great comfort in watching my mom and aunt sing, knowing that they would never fall through that floor where I had worked. The church was the center of our social life, and Whitney and I would laugh, knowing it was also the place where you could really get into big trouble, especially when you were allowed to sit with your friends and not your parents in the big church. I remember more than once being pulled from the pew for whispering and passing notes. I don't believe my feet ever hit the floor as my father hauled me outside in front of everyone. I believed even the preacher prayed for me. Whitney's favorite story of mine was me sneaking into the church kitchen after communion. I liked the little glasses of grape juice that were left over. I liked how they felt in my hand. I couldn't have been over 6 at the time, but I would lean against the table and one by one I would knock them back. Having some imaginary conversation with someone. My father was the one who found me again and asked what I was doing. I told him I was a cowboy and that I was drinking whiskey. I don't think my feet touched the floor that day either. It was easy for us to laugh. The church was what we knew. It was our private bond. I can see her in my own mind running around here as a skinny little girl, knowing everyone's business, knowing every inch of this place. I can also see her in trouble, too. Trying to use that beautiful smile, trying to talk her way out of it, and Sissy not having any of it. Mostly the days at church were good ones for us, and we both remembered how our parents tried to explain God and the plan he had for our lives. And we agreed that there was this feeling, this promise that if somehow we listened carefully, God's voice would somehow come to us. I told Whitney that I always worried God was going to ask me to be a preacher. I wasn't sure how much fun ours had. Whitney told me she wasn't worried at all, and she wasn't waiting for no whisper. She told God that she was going to be like Aretha, like her famous cousin Dion, like her beautiful mother, Sissy.